Yay. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here today. I am Jamie Lee. I'm the Intuitive Lifestyle on TikTok and on Instagram as well. And I have a very, very special guest with me today. We've been looking forward to this interview for a very long time. This is Caitlin Woolery, and she specializes in naturopathic medicine and clinical herbalism. And that's Bentley right there. And she is somebody that I have been going back and forth talking to, about herbalism, about the best way to help my body detox, to help my daughter detox, and things like that. So I really wanted to bring her on, and I recently found out, and we're going to talk all about this. I'm so excited. So this is really about MTHFR gene mutation. And we're going to take a deep dive into this mutation, or as she talks about it, what's most important is actual methylation, and or how our body processes and detoxes and things like that, and what that actually means for you or your child who has this mutation. So our goal is to kind of bring awareness, to let you know that there are options out there, and doing testing and getting lab work done and really getting down to what's really going on in the body. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Caitlin. Do you want to just kind of talk about what you do in your practice and things like that? We're also going to have labs. She's going to show us labs, specifically labs, and break all of this down for us.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you, Jamie's audience. My name's Caitlin, and I have a clinical practice out of California. Clinical herbalism is the mainstay of my practice, but I function a lot like a naturopathic would, or a functional medicine doctor, in that I order and work with all the same labs that a Western doctor would, and more, because I'm not under licensure or insurance. So I can branch out into the fringe places where all the good stuff happens, and order labs from research labs and diagnostics that the Western doctors won't touch. And so it's more about those labs show really the why and the root cause, not just what is. And that's where medicine and practicing gets really, really juicy and solution oriented. And I do, yep. Actually healing. So today we're going to talk about methylation, the MTHFR gene SNP. There's a lot of things that are misunderstood about this, even from prominent doctors like Dr. Berg. I heard him give a little 11-minute clip on this a couple weeks ago, and something he said shows misunderstanding. And so I've been working with a cutting edge. They've been around for about 40 years. Saber Science is who I run my methylation panels through, and I've been learning with their wicked wizard smart lab director and his team of doctors and nutritionists for about 4 years, and I've gone through pretty extensive training with them on what this looks like, and how to identify also how it shows up as symptoms in people. And so I have today a PowerPoint that's going to break this down and do a really deep dive into the science behind it, clear up some issues, and hopefully offer some solutions in terms of dietary recommendations, generic supplement recommendations. Okay. And we'll get to the bottom of it for people.
Fantastic. And so I really wanted to do this because, my daughter, and I really want to kind of put the puzzle pieces together. And I just know that there are, even with my following, so many children out there who have gone through what my daughter went through. And so she was speech delayed. The doctors wanted to test her for ASD, autism spectrum disorder. They said she should be talking, saying 200 words, right? So I used this heavy metal detox, and she started talking within 5 days, okay, of using. So obviously we know that heavy metals and toxins were connected in this. And then she also had the sugar bug vein, which, you know, in the, I guess the public, right, just general public, people connect that to having the MTHFR gene mutation, which is that blue little vein, and or a stork bite. She doesn't have a stork bite. So we got her tested, right? You know, that's the natural thing to do. So we have a holistic pediatrician. We went to the pediatrician, and this was a new one because we had moved. And she said, has she had any problems? And I told her her history. Well, she couldn't talk. I gave her a heavy metal detox. She started talking. And then she was like, oh, well, we should give her the MTHFR gene mutation test. And I was like, yeah, we should. That's a good idea. And then it turns out that she has what they call the the A1298C copy. And there are two copies. There's a C copy and an A copy. And just so everybody knows kind of my background story and how you're going to go at this with your angle. So can you tell us what is the MTHFR gene, first of all?
Okay, let's dive in. So I actually made a presentation PowerPoint so that people can see hands-on, because just to let you know, this is the most complicated piece of holistic healing. I think it's more complicated than endocrinology and hormones, which is said to be the most complicated, but this learning curve is really high. And so I need to show it in graphs, and that way your audience can pause on some of my slides or some of my graphs, and then they can go do their own research and come back and look at it more. So I'm going to share screen.
Okay, fantastic. Let's do it.
My PowerPoint. We'll come back to this one.
Okay.
Okay. So MTHFR and methylation, here we go. And it's not allowing me to move the slides on shared Zoom. Fantastic.
Oh, no. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Here we go.
Good.
I have to use the mouse pad. I can't use the arrows forward and backwards. So we'll see. We'll see how that works. But okay. So the MTHFR gene, every gene in the body is an enzyme. Not every enzyme is a gene, but when we're talking about these SNPs in certain genes, which there are thousands and thousands of them, what we're really talking about are the activity of an enzyme, which is essentially something that catalyzes an action in the body. So that's really important to understand. And this gene/enzyme specifically is responsible for converting folate, which is B9, into a bioactive and bioavailable usable form of folate. So this gets confusing for a lot of people because there's different words for B9. So to clarify that, folate, when that term is used, is the B9 that's found in whole foods. Very high, particularly in leafy greens, vegetables, fruits, and beans, which is going to become important later on down the road when we talk about diets to remedy the SNP in the gene. Folic acid is a synthetic form of B9, which is found in supplements. And I don't want to get too into this too early on, but this is important because there's where I know that you work with a lot of moms who have autistic children in your audience.
Yeah.
And there was a big craze around the time when autism started progressing in its commonality and frequency. Doctors were telling moms to take folic acid, which is while they're pregnant, to prevent the neural tube defects. And that is an unmethylated form of B9. So if a mom was undermethylated and took that, it would rob her of the ability to methylate in other areas of the body. And I haven't found any science to back this up yet, but I think that's a large contributing factor to the increase in autism, was a supplementation of an unmethylated B9 during pregnancy. So if we come back to touch on that, that's just an interesting thing to throw in there.
I've heard that. I've heard of that.
Oh, you have, if you have
Oh,
a friend science on it, can you please send it my way?
yes,
I want to read into like whatever I can there, because so far that's just intuitive for me. But yeah, okay, so that's interesting, Jamie.
Yeah.
Okay, so sometimes you'll see this written out as the methylated and bioavailable form. Sometimes, like my labs will say 5 MTHF. Sometimes you'll see it written as L or sometimes L5. But anyway, you see that, it basically means that this folate or folic acid has been converted and now is in a methylated usable form of B9.
Okay.
Okay, so now the methylation okay. Sorry, you guys are going to have to kind of deal with my finicky keyboard. All right, so methylation at its core is the process of donating a methyl group. A methyl group is 1 carbon and 3 hydrogen molecules. And the body will donate a methyl group to different compounds in the body, to a neurotransmitter, to hormones, to whatever is needed to have a biochemical process. The methyl group will get donated. It's donated from something called SAMe, which is a supplement, as well as a naturally occurring chemical in the body. If you went into a health food store, like you could see Jarrow brand, for example, sells SAMe. So some people might be familiar with this already. SAMe is a really important piece of MTHFR and methylation. And we're going to see why on my graph in just a minute, what the SAMe does. But essentially it is the methyl donator. And SAMe is a methylated amino acid methionine, which if anyone's done their basic, macro counting, this amino acid is just essentially what's going to become a protein in the body. So the methyl is donated to the neurotransmitters, the hormones, and DNA, so they can properly do their job. And then afterwards, SAMe is converted into homocysteine, which most people probably know that by now. Homocysteine is a marker the Western doctors will use to gauge inflammation in the heart, and they will use it as a cue to whether or not someone may be more inclined towards heart attacks or issues there. But it has a way grander function because it's SAMe and homocysteine are the core chunks of this methylation cycle. So SAMe converts into homocysteine, homocysteine converts back into SAMe, SAMe converts into homocysteine, and we're going to look at that on the graph in just a second. Okay. So homocysteine in that conversion cycle, homocysteine will also get shunted off, and some of it won't go back into making SAMe. Some of it will be converted into a detox substance with, everybody knows the buzzword glutathione at this point.
Yeah.
So crucial in making our main antioxidant, glutathione, which is responsible for neutralizing toxins so they don't create free radical damage in the body, injure the cell membrane. When the cell membrane is injured because there's not enough glutathione, that's inside the cell is where all our little organelles, energy production are, and our DNA. So when toxins start to get into the cells because there's not enough glutathione, that's the beginning of all disease and cancer. We got to protect the cell membrane. So it's really crucial. Or homocysteine is going to get shunted into a different pathway to make pyruvate, which is the beginning of the Krebs energy cycle. So autistic children are usually under methylators. That's generally the pattern I see, but occasionally there can be one that is an over methylator. So that's where the testing for methylation becomes way more critical than the testing for the actual genes. And we'll get into that too. So testing is crucial. This is one point I drive home to people on my Facebook, my clients, that testing is crucial before you start supplementing, especially B vitamins, but other supplements as well that may or may not contribute to methylation. So this whole thing where people walk into a health food store and spend $100 and, oh, magnesium looks good. Oh, B5 I read that that's good on the internet. It's like nightmarish. Actually, to a certain degree, understand why the government might want to regulate. They want to regulate it for a different reason, but it should have some form of a regulation so people don't go in and like take these supplements in a way that acts as a drug and then throw themselves into this totally wonky biochemical cycle and not even know it. Let me know, Jamie, if you have questions, like interrupt me.
I do, yeah. So, autistic children are notorious for having this gene, or what should I say?
Gene snips.
Methylation problem. How
Yep.
about that? Okay. But also children who are not autistic have methylation problems as well, right? Just like my daughter. So this is not a blanket statement, just so everybody knows, for children on the spectrum. But it's very important that we include them in this. Okay. So I just wanted to say that. Now also glutathione plays a huge part in this, right? Because of, and I also wanted to ask you, so I bounce around a lot. That's how my brain works.
Because you're so smart.
Okay, glutathione and connection with, can we just get this out of the way with Tylenol and acetaminophen, please, for children, and for children who may have methylation issues already, and how important that is.
Okay, so that's essentially a nail in the coffin. That is the biggest no-no for two reasons. No one should be on Tylenol ever under any circumstances, period. I think Harvard or one of those bigwig schools just released a study that mothers who took Tylenol in the womb had kids that were 3 times as likely to have autism, because it completely represses the body's ability to make glutathione. And the reverse is true as well, where if someone is overdosing on one of those over-the-counter drugs, glutathione or NAC is the antidote from their liver completely crashing. So you do not want to mess with it. Another thing is that people use those drugs to repress fevers, which is in herbal medicine, we practice something called following the vital force. We enthrone the vital force, and that means everything that we do to assist the body is done in a way that follows the intelligent grand design that nature has created. So a fever, how we got into this idea that we need to take the Tylenol and these drugs to repress fevers in children is so insane, because the fever is a brilliant mechanism. It pushes the virus from the inside of the body out through the pores. It opens the pores in diaphoresis, and that heat burns the virus. So if you're going to go giving your kid, oh, my kid has a fever, I can't bear to watch him or her, little Susie is suffering. Okay, well, you just closed the pores and shut down the vital force. You repress the vital force, and you just drove that virus deep into the organs and into the joints, where it's going to have a hard time coming off. And I see this in tongue diagnostics. I'm trained by a brilliant Chinese medicine doctor, and we can see the people on their tongue, the latent virus will show in these little strawberry seed indentations of moms who took the Tylenol or gave Tylenol to their kids, and the kids' bodies could never get rid of it because the glutathione was repressed, and so was the fever. So that's a big no.
Yep. And I try to get this. That's the thing, is I try and tell everybody I possibly can, every mother I possibly can. But the thing is there has been so much fear instilled by doctors in Western medicine that fever is not okay. It's scary. No, please, no fever whatsoever at all. Ever grab the Tylenol, and we are harming our children. And then talk about real quick about when you go to be on that schedule at the pediatricians, that everybody, that's what you need to do these days. You go and you get the vacation from your pediatrician for your child, or vacation. Okay. And then we go home and we give our child Tylenol because of the fever. Can you just shed some light on that?
Yes. So if you go to your doctor and you get a vacation from your doctor in the vacation schedule, number one, you're bypassing all the body's natural detox pathways, because normally pathogens come in through the mouth and the nose, and the body then has the ability to breathe some of the toxins out, push it through first and second phase detox of the liver, kidneys. We have all these ways to naturally detox. When the vacation is injected into the skin, it bypasses all those defense mechanisms and is straight into the blood. So the immune system is like, oh my, what the is this? And it sends the immune system up to go do its job. Now, if that's good because the body's doing what is left of it to do to get this stuff out of the system. Now, if you go and repress that even further with an over-the-counter anti-fever medicine, you have just annihilated, you have dethroned the vital force in every way, shape, or form.
Okay.
And people don't have the longevity of sight to like look back and see how and why this starts, when in 1 year from now, 2 years from now, all of a sudden the child's no longer meeting the standards for developmental stuff.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, why? What's going on? It started with that.
And it's also the metals and the toxins in those vacations as well. And if we have a methylation issue, we number one have a problem detoxing and methylating. Number one already, foundation, baseline. And if we also go home, because this is just what we were taught, it's normal. You do that, you get a fever, the body, and then you cure the fever with the Tylenol, and then you deplete the glutathione, and then you suppress the immune system even more, and the body's ability to fight that virus off. And then we're left with what? What are we left with? Regressions. Okay,
Yep.
so this is a lot of times where we will see regressions and speech delays. Is this true?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's true. We can see that is true. They're going to do whatever they can to discredit that, but to me, it is crystal clear as day, as the sun is shining in the sky right now, that's what's going on.
Okay. And so this is why too, for those mothers and parents and everybody who is in fact in my group and has used PBX with their children, that's why their children have begun to talk again, have had regular bowel movements. And I'm sure we'll talk about that as well, the block detox pathway, eczema's gone away, eye contact is stronger, things along those lines, is because we're removing the toxic overload, right? But no matter what, we want to get our child tested. So let's kind of move forward.
Okay. I love it, Jamie. You're so fun to talk to.
I know I could do this forever.
Okay, so issues with MTHFR gene SNPs and methylation. So we already kind of touched on the heart being affected because high homocysteine levels affect brain function. They can't detox out, and also we have a lot of neurotransmitters in our brain.
Okay.
Well, we have chronic inflammation, glutathione. We touched on that. Of course, it affects our detox pathways. All the hormones have to go through methylation as well, so the hormones get whacked.
Okay.
And energy production, which we're about to see on my graph. So
can I interject for 1 second?
Of course.
So even children, just kind of going back, even children who have not gone on vacation, okay, right, who have these speech delays and issues. Can we talk about that as the toxins from the genes being passed down? Obviously environmental toxins as well, but is it?
Yeah, we can't blame this all on taking a vacation, because right. it's in the water, it's in the air, it's in the food. I mean, if you think about it just at like a very fundamental level, if we are all eating genetically modified food, we are going to be genetically modified, right? Yep. So if we wonder why all of a sudden everyone's getting these polymorphisms in their genetic expression for the negative, they're down-regulated for the most part. I mean, yeah, it's food. Water is our main, what we're composed of, 70% water, and the rest are minerals that come from food. So we are an expression of the food and the water we eat. And so, yeah, that's a huge piece of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
And has this also, so I'm a recovering addict, right? My family, my mom, I'm worried about my daughter, and intuitively I'm like, this is connected to neurotransmitters. I need to make sure she has the proper amount, like neurotransmitters, so she does not become an addict or an alcoholic. Is that in connection with methylation as well?
Absolutely. And I'm actually going to use my labs to show how methylation is directly affects our mood and our ability to feel high vibrational ecstatic joy, which is what the illusion of alcohol and pills give to people. So you're already ahead of me. We're gonna go
Let's
there.
do it,
I
baby.
love it.
Here we
I
go.
love it.
I feel like I'm on a roller coaster ride. I'm so excited.
It's fun. I love when I can geek out with people about this stuff. You know, it's so nerdy, but it's so amazing because it's how we experience life. These are the core building blocks that are going to determine whether we co-create something beautiful or like slump down into addiction and depression. So it's like, to me, there's no other thing but to study this. So I love that you're passionate about it too. Okay, so moving on. We'd already see, we're already just ahead of, we don't even need my slides. So poor diet, all the genetically modified food, packaged food, grocery store food, commercial food, fast food, soda and fruit juices. The fruit juices are not healthy, people.
No.
Poor water sources, vacations, and all pharmaceutical medications, alcohol, coffee, cigarettes, stress and trauma. Nutrient depletion might be the biggest one, and you're going to see why on the graph that it's coming literally next. So I'm not going to keep talking about the graph. The graph is coming, and you're going to see why the nutrient depletion is so huge for all of these methylation and biochemical pathways. Okay, so
what about like say squeeze juice? Like say we buy squeezed grapefruit juice, that's okay, right? We're talking about generic juice that has sugar and is, all that stuff at the store. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, prepackaged juice should be illegal in my opinion, but the juicing it yourself at home, that's good.
Yeah, and Pedialyte.
Oh God.
I know.
God.
I know.
No, that's just so scary. I know. No Pedialyte, no Ensure, none of those Soylent Green shit ass weird Bill Gates fake laboratory, nothing. Not if
dyes in it, all that. I mean, are you serious? We're giving our sick child this?
Yeah. We have to remember at the end of the day that there's a mass global eugenics movement going on. And I'm not going to go too crazy down the rabbit hole, but they're obsessed with the downregulation of our genes. So if you are eating or consuming something from a eugenicist, you can guarantee that you're not just MTHFR, but you're going to have downregulation of the other millions of genes and enzymes in your body as well. So if it's in a packaged food, no, we make it ourselves, we grow it ourselves, and we start to trade. That's our power. Yep. But you kind of already touched on this question earlier. So it's not just autistic kids. It's anyone should test for methylation. ADHD, that's a huge one in ADD. Any kind of behavioral issues, dementia people, huge, and Alzheimer's for sure. There's guaranteed methylation issues going on there. Cancer, fibros. So you can see all these like chronic diseases. Okay. So I'm actually going to, this is blurry, but I have this pulled up in a different area where I can share screen more effectively. Here we go. Nope. Sorry.
That's okay. No, yeah. I'm sure nobody minds. I mean, this is probably the most information anybody's ever going to receive on what's actually real as far as this. So nobody cares.
Okay. Thanks for being patient.
Yes.
Here we go. Okay. So this is the methylation pathway, and I'm going to kind of describe what's going on here because I know it's pretty complex. And then down here, we have the transsulfuration pathway. So the homocysteine is being shunted down over here in terms of detox to make glutathione and energy production over here. But I'm going to start with the top of this graph. So this little guy over here is going to describe to us the methylation of B9. This bigger graph right here is going to describe to us how a methyl group is donated. So we had already talked about the base of methylation being the exchange between the amino acid methionine or methionine, however you want to say it, methionine. These are amino acids here, and then these little guys are enzymes. And then down here, we have the nutrients that are necessary for these enzymes to convert.
Okay.
So in this case, magnesium, potassium, and ATP, which is not a nutrient, that's essentially a building unit of energy.
Okay.
So methionine follows this pathway. Oh, we ate enough potassium and magnesium today. Yay, the enzyme can work and it can convert into SAM. Now the SAM is going to convert and it's going to lose, or this is on its way to become SAMe. In the process, it's going to drop this methyl group out for it to be used in some biochemical pathway in the body, at which point it's going to convert it into SAH. And based on the availability of B3 or niacin in the system, it's going to use this enzyme to then convert into homocysteine. So this is basically our biological process of methionine converting into homocysteine. Now from there, some of the homocysteine is going to get shunted down into cystathionine, and based on the B6 is really important for this process.
Okay.
B6 is going to be used to, as you know, cysteine, which is the root of NAC, which then becomes the N-acetylcysteine, or the cysteine then becomes ultimately glutathione. So this is our antioxidant, which is going to ensure that the nasties that we're picking up from food and environment are neutralized and expelled through the detox pathways. Now it's also going to get shunted over this way into energy production. B6 will make cysteine, and then cysteine will go this direction too. Pyruvate is essentially going to enter into the Krebs cycle, and that's going to make our cells energy. So a lot of people who are tired all the time have low malfunctioning methyl process right here. The transsulfuration pathway is probably not enough, doesn't have enough B6. Chronically, I see B6. I've never seen someone's labs come back where they have enough B6.
Okay.
So there's either homocysteine isn't getting broken down well enough to make these things, or we have to look at the individual labs to see what's going wrong with it. So then the other option for homocysteine is that some of it is going to start to continue to follow this graph, and it's going to get converted back into methionine. Now, in order for this crucial thing to happen, for the conversion of homocysteine to make its way back up into methionine, it has to have methylated B9 and methylated B12. So those are the crucial, if you look at most textbooks or if you read about it, it'll say the core function of B9, B12, and to a certain degree B6 is that it converts homocysteine into methionine. Now, this up here is a bio-unavailable form of B9. So this is describing the pathway through which B9 becomes methylated. And as you'll see, when you hit this spot, this gene/enzyme is required as the catalyst in combination with B2 and B3, that those are required to for B9 to become active, at which point, you know, it comes up here and it hangs out with B12, gets oxidized, and then those two together complete, and we have methionine. Now the whole cycle can repeat. So very, very important here. If someone has a SNP/polymorphism in the MTHFR, this for most people is going to be downregulated, which means that they are not going to have enough methyl to make the active bioavailable form of B9.
Okay.
And now we can't go over here to donate this methyl group to go do its job on the hormones and the neurotransmitters.
Wow. So somebody also, because there's a lot of things that you're touching on that are bringing, they're buzzing in my head where it's like, I have that, I knew that, you know what I mean, intuitively. And it's all connecting because I know I have methylation issues, and I have an appointment with you on Monday or Tuesday, thank God, because I want to get to the bottom of this, and we're going to do that with my daughter as well, right? Because I want to heal, right? And like, we can heal and we can function properly like we were made to. And so people who have a B12 deficiency, this is going to be an indication.
this will be an indication, but where you're really going to see it, this is where it's going to get unique, is that this is a generic pathway, but where it's going to get very fascinating for you when we run these labs and for your daughter is, and I'm going to show you an example of this using my own labs because I am an overmethylator. So my gene is upregulated. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So do you have any questions on this graph? That's pretty straightforward.
Oh, that's perfect. That explains a lot. It's perfect. So anybody who has a general tiny understanding can put, this together, and even not, if not, it doesn't matter. It's still amazing to know this.
Okay. That's good to hear. So you'll hear that if people do go further with this and they start to study methylation on a deeper level, I would recommend Mensa, Chris Masterjohn. There are some PhD experts who I have studied in addition to who I've been trained by. And you'll start to hear them say there's going to be specific nutrients that you really hear them talking about. So you can do your own research on this. Choline is crucial within this cycle. Betaine, which is hydrochloric acid. Now, this is interesting because betaine, Chris Masterjohn calls it betaine. I'm like, no, betaine. I'm sure there's betaine, but it's betaine to me. So this is the base of hydrochloric acid. And if you think about, with autistic kids, they have chronically low hydrochloric acid, and that's why the MMS works on them, because the CDS, the chlorine dioxide, is activated by that hydrochloric acid, and it boosts their body's ability to break down nutrients and also dismantle the glyphosates in the Monsanto stuff. So that's an interesting connection, huh?
Oh, and I wanted to just bring up too, because you were talking about NAC, and NAC is a supplement that it's like a buzzword in the autism community. But again, though, we never want to just go buy, these supplements without, being under supervision of somebody like you, and really doing, this testing to see,
That's a really good point you bring up about the NAC. So as you can see here, cysteine is crucial in making glutathione, but there's two other amino acids that contribute to glutathione production. One is glycine and the other is glutamate. And all these amino acids we have, I think my physiology class is slipping, my nutrition class, I think it's 22 amino acids, but correct me if it might be 20. They need to be in certain ratios. So when you do high mass dosing of one, and it's going to be to the detriment of the others. So the N-acetylcysteine is good, but if you're doing that long term, then you're throwing the other ones out of whack. So short times, like if you need to do a liver detox, N-acetylcysteine is good, maybe like 4 to 6 weeks or a few days if you feel like you're getting sick or you really need to detox something out of the body, like a vacation. And also combining it too with like glycine is best sourced from bone broth, which we'll talk about that too. So yeah, there's nuances. As I'm validating what you're saying, there's nuances, and I really appreciate your intuition and your soft tread there instead of just stuffing all the supplements down. It's important. So thank you.
And then one question just for myself. Somebody who works out and takes like a pre-workout and all that stuff in order to build muscle, when I do that, I feel worse. I feel worse after taking that. Can you explain why somebody with a methylation problem, which I know I have, is not doing good with this and these amino acids and all that stuff?
Yes, that's so interesting. So I would only be able to explain that after I see your labs, but when the amino acids are so crucial, as is obvious from this pathway here. Even so for example, say you, in your lab, we're going to have all the amino acids tested. And say, just for example, you are high and out of range and you're trending upwards in methionine. That's going to most likely mean that you have too much SAMe in your body, and therefore you are over methylating, have too many methyl groups. They need to be sopped up and buffered. So if your energy drink and you're just sitting there drinking it is feeding you more methionine that's making more methyl, then you're going to feel over methylated and probably buzzing, and you're going to be converting too much adrenaline. And so it goes from there as as one base example that I could think of. I'd have to see or is it not an energy drink, but a workout, a pre-workout.
With all the amino acids and stuff like that, and then detoxing that out as well, right? And because there's lots of nasty stuff in there. Okay, all right,
Yep.
so let's move on.
And so what I realized is like, because I spent a lot of money on my education to learn nutritional science and all this stuff. And at the end of the day, I was like, oh, so we're just supposed to eat food like the ancestors did. So all these supplements is crazy town, and just drink bone broth and eat sauerkraut and vegetables. And I'm going to be, like it's just so stupid simple, right? Mostly I'm not a fan of supplementation unless you really, really need it. And I'm going to show you like on my graph how I really do need something. All right, so let's go back to, I'm going to stop share and go back to our presentation. All right, so I know a couple people are probably going to be a little bit disappointed that I don't talk too much about the actual gene SNPs. And there's a reason for that. So I'm gonna kind of go over this part with you. So there's actually different ways you can look at at the genetics and methylation on labs, but the two main ways are going to be through genetic testing, which most people are way more familiar with that than they are with methylation testing, and it needs to be the other way around. So the genetic testing is going to show whether or not you have a defect in certain enzymes like MTHFR or COMT or MAO or some of the ones that you mentioned earlier. There are so many of them that you can see on panels, and I have a little graph of it. I don't focus on them. Here's why. So a SNP in the gene only shows that there is a defect, and it doesn't show what the methylation status is or how the SNP is affecting you. And so you get yes, it's here, but so what do I do about it? So every single one of us is walking around with thousands of these gene SNPs and have been since the beginning of time. And this is the process of evolution. We've typically been going up in evolution. Now we're at the point where we're kind of devolving. Unfortunately, it's really sad and scary, but whether we're devolving or evolving, we have all been having genetic SNPs since the beginning of time. So it doesn't really show us much that these SNPs are happening.
So when you say SNP, you mean what I guess Western medicine doctors are talking about is like a copy, the gene mutation copy, the C or the A copy, which is completely irrelevant. It's just saying, it's completely irrelevant. We need to dive deep and talk and look at the methylation process, because everybody's is different.
Exactly. Because if it does show that's copied this way or that way, or it's snipped in this way or that way, like you had that done, did it give you any information as to what to do?
Nothing. Just said she has the gene mutation of the A copy.
And then you're just sitting there powerless in the
face.
Oh yeah. So that's where the methylation testing, because that's the part that's the so what, that's the how and what can I do, because it shows what's going on with the methylation status in those transsulfuration pathways, which is how the neurotransmitters, both anabolic and catabolic, and the hormones are all going to be affected. Now, rarely do people do this part, and therefore they're missing the entire bus. So that's like the point of why I'm excited to be on here with you today, is like, I want to tell people how to jump on the bus that's going to drive them to the solution.
Well, and also potentially, prevent a vacation injury, right? And then we dive deep into all of a sudden, our child is fine now. Our child is going to be evaluated for ASD, right? Which also is mimicking heavy metal toxicity and obviously methylation issues. Or possibly preventing addiction, anxiety, or depression in our effing children. So that's why this is so important, to get this testing, to have this knowledge, and to know what to do.
Yeah, I like it how you just said, I I think it was, I'm not sure if you said these exact words, but it sounded like the symptoms. This describes the
Yeah.
symptoms that are known as autism, because that is a very lazy label to throw a complex set of issues that are going wrong on a biochemical level. And once you see what is happening on the biochemical level, then the symptoms disappear, and all of a sudden there's no more disease or
Okay, so we can reverse this process. Yes, you work in reversing with children who have been diagnosed with ASD.
Yeah, and myself too. I mean, I've reversed it. It's not, I mean, you can, the lab, if you just even call them and talk to them about it, like they'll tell you all day long, autistic children are helped by this stuff. So yeah, and
That's
I
why
mean,
I'm here. That's why I'm effing here with you right now, is to give our parents, the parents, hope and the knowledge, you know, there's a better way.
Yep, 100% a better
They're
way.
not diseased, they're not disordered, they're not broken. This is not a, you know, a death sentence. They do not have to go on like this throughout their life.
Yep, it's true. There are solutions, not to say that the solutions don't come easy, or that they come easy, but it takes a lot of work. Like the testing is not cheap, than implementing the program. Like you have to have a fire, like Jamie, you got a fire up under your ass to reverse this. And the world is calling those of us, because what's coming down the pipeline from these people, when you follow the money trail and what they're doing with the food and the vacations and the pharma and all that, they are Goliath. And so we have to get a fire up under our ass, light that fire so that David can go defeat that beast in it. But it's not an easy thing, and it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the faint of heart follow your shit.
No, they're not by following. They
No.
for long.
Yeah. I can't imagine you attracting people who are weak in that area. No.
They
All right.
care about their children, right? And want to help their kids for sure. So that's why they're with me. So okay. I'm so excited. Let's continue.
All right.
On.
Okay, so we already went down here. So the problem is that most people are testing their SNPs, but they're not testing the methylation. So this is what I meant about Dr. Berg. So like Dr. Berg's video the other day, he had no idea when he was presenting this information, because I wanted to see how other doctors were doing this. And so I was like, oh, he knows what's up. Berg is pretty good. And I was like, let's see what he's saying about methylation. And I'm like, oh, no, he didn't. Because he was just talking about the gene, and he's like, so if your genetic test come back positive for the SNP and the copy and this and that, you need to be taking methyl B. And I was like, no, because if you don't know if you're an over or under methylator and you take methyl B and you're an over methylator, you're not going to sleep for 5 days. Like it will be such severe insomnia. So this is a problem, and but I think we beat that horse pretty dead. That's clear at this point. So let's move on. So, okay, so I'm going to pull up my own panels so you can see what this looks like in a personalized, like real time. And we're going to bring it, oops.
And this is also for the parents who have children with ADHD so bad that their children will not sit still or sleep and things like that. Essentially this graph is going to kind of, show that as well, right? With anxiety, anxiety is also very connected.
Totally. This is, yep, we're going to go right into it. You nailed it. Okay. So here I am. This is the catecholamine pathway. So the catecholamine pathways are the uppers, like the noradrenaline, adrenaline, other names for that. You'll hear it called norepinephrine and epinephrine. So this is how we tell whether or not someone is an over or an under methylator. We are looking at the ratio right here. I'm going to try to keep us zoned in because I know this looks like it is literally another language.
Yeah.
So the norepinephrine to epinephrine ratio. otherwise known as a noradrenaline to adrenaline ratio, which is obviously our fight or flight response. So anxiety, sleep, autonomic nervous system function, how well we move into sympathetic, which is the fight or flight, versus how well that turns off and we go into parasympathetic rest and digest. So the range for healthy methylation is between 2.69 and 9.12. If you are below 2.69, you are an over methylator, which is yours truly. If you are above a 9.12, you are an under methylator. I know that's kind of counterintuitive. So low means over, high means under. And here's what's going on. This is the pathway right here. So the dopamine path, this is the dopamine pathway, and it starts all the way over here. We're going to make all of our conversions until finally we have norepinephrine. Okay. So my number is 32.71. Normal range is between 15 and 51. So I'm smack in the middle when it comes to norepinephrine, noradrenaline, which is great. However, I have so much SAMe and an upregulation of MTHFR that I am methylating the heck out of that noradrenaline, and I am converting extremely high, rapid, increased activity into epinephrine / adrenaline, which looks like severe anxiety, an external calm, but an internal constant shake, days without sleeping. Now, a person who's an overmethylator is going to be incredibly soothed and drawn to benzodiazepines. So that is the pharmaceutical temporary Band-Aid solution. When I go into the doctor and I'm shaking, he's not looking at my methylation pathways. He's like, oh, you have anxiety. Here's a pill. And I'm like, that feels good. And then therefore is the birthing of addiction, right? So when I'm able to see this finally spelled out for me on this graph, I realize, oh, well, actually, maybe I mean, sure, I can call myself as an addict, but maybe I was just self-medicating a biochemical pathway that could have been prevented with something as silly as some glycine to sop up this extra methyl.
And aside from obviously trauma, right? Like trauma happening at home and things like that, but we're talking about a chemical reaction causing the birthing of addiction.
Yeah, exactly. Just like how, I mean, I would never, my life is dependent on the spiritual work of recovery. So I would never discredit that. That's the staple.
No, we're talking science right now. We're talking science and chemical brain, Okay.
Exactly. Which I don't think is, I mean, so in AA, they would call it the third road, right? Of trying to find something other than a spiritual solution to fix this. And so I would just make it clear that like the recovery is the foundation, but these things are just like tools to consider.
You need all of it though. You need body, mind, and spirit, no matter what, if we're going to actually recover. So, and actually, real quick, Bill W., I don't know if you knew that, but he wanted to add in nutrition and take out the coffee and take out the sugar, and they voted him down.
Really? I didn't know that.
He wanted to add all of this into the program, and also he was a medium. And there was another book written about that, how he could talk to dead people and his spirituality and how that evolved. Yeah, so it truly is body, mind, and spirit. In healing of trauma, right, which is the steps too. But all right, anyways.
No, I love it. I love that we just segued into that. That's because it's all the layers of it, the mind and the body and the soul. And I didn't realize that I did not know that. I've never heard, I run with some pretty hardcore book thumpers and I've never heard them.
It's on the Weston A. Price. Weston A. Price, you can find it in those links where they talk about that and Bill W. and him getting voted down and all of that. And he believes so wholeheartedly in the nutrition side for alcoholics and addicts. Yeah. So.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. That makes me really, I want you to send me that information.
Yep.
Yeah, because he was also into belladonna, and I know he was into some mystical stuff that they kind of downplayed in the book to speak to a more Protestant, like religious way.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll have another video topic
Yeah,
too.
dude, for sure.
All right. So I guess the only other thing here that would be interesting to point out. Okay, so we're gonna get into like diet and supplement for over and under methylators. So I just want to point out an intricacy of like of how this works. So
Can I
the
say something really quick? Can I interject before I forget this? Okay, ADHD children. And why, so what is, so there's, we always hear this connection, ADHD children and the red dyes.
Like red 40.
Yep, and the chemical dyes and things like that. So ADHD children, what do they I mean, obviously everybody's different, but what is going on as far as, is it more norepinephrine? Is it like a more like more of a production of that? If you could kind of break that down in a generic you know, kind of ballpark thing for those parents.
I think okay, so I would have to do research before I spoke to this, but what my best clinical guess is that the red dye is functioning as a neuroexcitotoxin similar to MSG is my best guess.
Yep.
Now that probably is going to bring us down here to the glutamate pathway, which is GABA. And this is kind of a tricky one because so GABA is the brake, it's the inhibitory neurotransmitter, whereas you have the excitatory ones like adrenaline and the catecholamines. Now, GABA is made though from an excitatory glutamate, is an excitatory gas pedal. So there's probably something going on. And again, this is my best clinical guess. Okay. There's probably something going on where the glutamate is being shunted and there's too much glutamic acid, which is like go, 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 go. And it can't make its way over fully into the GABA production, which is the calming slow. So there's an excitability happening in the brain that feels like mania and anxiety type symptoms.
And inability as well to probably detox properly too, because of, you know, all of the synthetics and toxins that are in our foods and, you know, those red dyes or yellow dyes or whatever it is. So it's just like this huge compounding issue. But we just want to be like, here's some Ritalin, you know, here's a script for Ritalin or whatever, or, you know, your child just has ADHD, like you gotta just deal with it.
Yeah, you make a really good point. And I don't know how to put this any more bluntly, but it is as blunt as this. If you are a parent and you have a child with any of these symptoms and you are feeding your kid red dye 40, MSG, and these other things, and then putting that child on a prescription, you are poisoning your kid. It is that simple. It is the parent's responsibility. And just because it's socially acceptable to eat the red dyes and the drugs does not mean that you get off the hook karmically for what you're doing. So we need to have it delivered in kind of a tough love kind of way to break open the fog that these parents are walking around under that are making them think it's okay. And this takes.
They're just listening to the doctors, you know, blindly trusting. I don't know when this happened. Well, I do know when it happened, and we don't have to talk about that. But, you know, when all the doctors were taught a certain thing with Rockefeller and all those things, funding all the information they actually learned that just feeds big pharma and stuff like that. But this is my problem. My problem is that we just accept that our children are like this, and it's not natural and it's not normal, and we can't effing fix it. We can heal these things. Your child's not disordered. Do not just accept that prescription. Do not just go on vacation. You know what I mean? Because it's causing harm. Okay.
100%. See, that's the passion. That's the loud speaking of the truth that might sound abrasive or uncomfortable for people, but it has to be screamed from the fucking mountaintops until everyone goes, oh, what? Oh my God, the food is poison?
Yeah.
And then I go to the doctor and they gave me legal speed to treat the poison.
Yep.
And it has to click. It has to click for them what exactly is happening and why there is a down regulation in the human genome that is going to lead us to extinction if it is not caught right now.
Yes.
So I'm with you, girl.
Yeah, and our kids deserve better.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we have extra time at the end, we should dive into the raw mutation of 2027 for like 2 or 3 minutes. And because we're coming up to a make it or break it point where it's going to be, there's no like teetering on the line of, is humanity going to like permanently degrade into a non-human species from this? So this is the moment where it has to.
I think it's, because we're talking about all children being born with autism, and I think, what is it, 1 in 27 are diagnosed with autism? Is that correct? I don't know.
I think it's even at like 1 in, if I heard 1 in 15 recently, but that could be a prediction for the upcoming years. I'm not sure.
Okay, and this is all stemming and born from toxins. I mean, that's, if we really, obviously genetic mutations and things like that, but it's all born from toxins and nutrient deficiencies.
Yeah. It's so stupid simple at the end of the day.
Very simple, point blank period, toxins and and nutrient deficiencies. So, okay. All right, let's move on.
Okay. All right. So we're going to get into supplementation. So I just want to show you, a lot of you, if you did run genetic testing, you probably see, I'm not sure even like what, I'd have to look at your labs, but COMT and MAO are really crucial in the breakdown of neurotransmitters. So neurotransmitters have to be built up and then they have to be cleared. And you need these enzymes / genes. See there, this is how they probably write out as genes on your labs that you looked at, Jamie. I'm not sure what test you did, but they probably write out as these genes. But however, these are the enzymes associated with activity. So you can tell, like, for example, I am lower. So I am converting, my COMT is functioning well. That enzyme is converting into methanephrine. But my MAO is low. So my MAO is not clearing the methanephrine and I have low VMA, which is a dopamine metabolite. So I'm building up a ton of epinephrine and adrenaline and I'm not clearing it. It's a really bad situation.
Definitely.
So I can't wait to see your panels.
I know, I'm so excited because I'm gonna be like, this is what's wrong with me. I knew it.
I know it. I have answers and solutions. It's like the context to it all. So in my labs, for example, I know that I do really well with niacin. Niacin is a methyl sponge. So if someone's over methylating, like I have too much SAMe, I take niacin and that niacin sucks it up. Now, this is also good for me too, because I am not converting in my serotonin pathway. I'm not converting tryptophan into 5-HTP because I don't have niacin. So niacin serves me. I see that on my lab. So I take niacin. I sleep like a baby. I'm feeling good. Like I'm all calm and can create good things. Now, someone who's an undermethylator goes and supplements niacin and they don't have the extra methyl groups to soak up the unmethylated niacin that they take in the capsule. They're going to spin out and down into a really ugly dark hole. So like I see on Facebook groups, there's this niacin, like everyone take niacin, it cures cholesterol, and they're dosing 2000 milligrams, but they haven't done methylation testing. So it gets to be troubling.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So now we'll go into diet. How are we doing on time? Do we have probably like 5-10?
Yeah, we'll shoot for 10 minutes.
Okay.
Oh, and we have to do what should parents avoid. And again, it's you just got to get the testing done. You got to get the testing done. But if we can kind of break that down again and do a generic ballpark, if we had to guess.
Yes, we'll do it.
Yeah.
We'll do a generic. I have a generic one ready for people. And again, this is like, gosh, sorry. Okay. It wouldn't let me move my, the picture of the two of us out of the way. Okay. So we just went over this in terms of how to test methylation and then what it looks like with the adrenaline and neurotransmitters. So, these would be symptoms. So like say if someone is I have an undermethylating client whose methylation groups are so low. She describes to me she can't get out of bed. Like the undermethylation, she doesn't have any methyl groups to convert the norepinephrine over into adrenaline. So she's dragging, like walking through mud, has no motivation for anything, just hardcore depression. That's why. And then
it's depression issues methylating. That's all it is, right? Can I just make that crystal fucking clear?
Biochemical in her case.
Biochemical, right?
Yep. And she's also nutrient depleted, like severely nutrient depleted. So there's no B3, there's no vitamin C or zinc to build the serotonin pathway. So it's a combination of a couple things for her. There's this high norepinephrine, lack of motivation, and then she's lacking nutrients to build serotonin. So, but yep, it's that simple.
It's
so
that simple.
nutrients. What's that?
And we can fix it.
Yeah.
So people I mean, we have to, that's what I'm here for, is a hope shot. Like, you can heal, you can fix these things. Your brain can function properly. You can be okay. So can your fucking kids.
Easily. Hope shot. I like that.
Yes.
Totally. Not even that hard either. It's really not that hard.
Okay.
So, yep. Hope shot. That's good. Okay. Diet for overmethylators. Overmethylators need high dietary folate. This is in beans and greens. So overmethylating people like me, if I eat 2 days worth of leafy greens and tons of broccoli and I pair it with some beans, I have zero anxiety and I'm going to sleep like a baby. All of a sudden, problem is solved. Overmethylators thrive on low, medium to low methionine foods. So those are like animal products, dairy, eggs, high methionine foods, because remember, the methyl is made from methionine. So if I eat a lot of that, I'm like up at night buzzing. Glycine is crucial, which should always come in the form of homemade bone broth, never the store-bought garbage from the shelves like Kettle and Fire. It's dead.
Okay.
If you're using bone broth for medicinal reasons, which is the only reason you really would use it, you have to make it yourself.
Okay.
So that's the basis for overmethylators.
This is my diet. Diet. You know that?
Well,
this is what keeps me okay. I eat beans every day and I need my leafy greens because I feel physically different when I eat these foods.
I can't.
This is
you have an overmethylator spunk, where overmethylators are highly creative, manic type minds that just go and go and go. They're the artists. So you're probably, I can't wait to see your panels, like I keep saying, but it's going to be so interesting.
Also why I'm very successful and passionate.
It's true, you are.
You can't fucking stop me.
No, you don't get to 1 million followers if you're lazy. So I'm going to bet on you as an overmethylator, especially if you feel the best with the leafy greens and the beans. Now, an undermethylator. Well, let's first talk about supplements for overmethylators. Yes. 2 things soak up excess methyl. Niacin, but you shouldn't really use niacin like that. It's more like using it as a drug. It's better to use glycine because it actually buffers rather than soaks up. So it's gonna just more of do a buffer thing. Just so
bone broth then, right? Okay.
Bone broth. Okay. Yep. I won't lie, like if my diet gets off track and I am feeling the anxiety of the overmethylation, I will occasionally do like a supplement of glycine, but I try not to. But if I'm desperate, and it'll be like I'll feel it.
Okay.
And I'm not opposed to, because on my labs, I know that niacin is truly needed. And so I will do occasionally like, oh, and by the way, people, we are not talking nicotinic acid. We are talking about the flushing real niacin. If you use nicotinic acid, which is what they are selling most of in the stores, it's not going to do the thing you need it to do. Okay, so overmethylators cannot take methyl B9, and they probably shouldn't do methyl B12.
Okay.
If over methylators need to get the folate from the diet, and on rare occasion they can take folinic acid, but it needs to come from the greens.
So even like a whole food B12 supplement, B complex is out of the question. Oh, okay. Okay.
You got to be real careful.
Okay.
That's why, yeah, I would get the bees custom blended by the lab that runs the results, or from food.
So
In the
that might also be why I feel like crap after taking the pre-workout, because of all the bees and it's not real stuff, it's synthetic.
There you go. And they're probably doing weird forms of the bees too.
Yeah.
Like instead of the P5P for B6, they're probably doing the pyroxidine, or however you say that word.
Right. So I do it for the dopamine release and the anxiety release and all that stuff. That's why I work out, but I'm also screwing myself with taking the
Likely.
pre-workout. Yep.
Likely.
Okay. And I feel very like acidic, you know.
We can probably custom formulate you like a superfood type pre-workout that's going to really serve you. You're still going to get that rush from the exercise, but we're not going to be cutting you down at the same time.
Okay.
That'll be fun to formulate.
I'm so excited. Okay, let's go on.
When we see it. Okay, so over methylators cannot take SAMe. I have a client down in LA who is she hasn't slept in years. Like she'll go for days without sleeping, and she was supplementing SAMe without having her labs done, and she's eating a vegan diet, so getting no methionine, and just twacked out. So it's little things like this can become hugely significant.
Okay.
Over methylators do well with choline from eggs or from phosphatidylcholine supplement creams. I use that. It will directly push down that adrenaline. Fermented fish oil. No one should be taking fish oil that's cold pressed. The only brand I use is Green Pastures on Amazon, and that's a classic Weston A. Price's. That's his format where they ferment, so you still get the natural A and the D.
Yep.
That's highly anti-inflammatory for the brain when there's methylation issues going on with neurotransmitters.
Yep, and that's why I feel a lot better when I take fish oil. And the fermented is what I use. So.
Oh, good girl. I would expect nothing less from you. Yeah.
Yep.
So over methylators will have suicide. These are the people that kill themselves when they're given an SSRI. The warning labels are made for people like us.
Right. Yeah.
But we will crave the benzos and the downers. Also, we do not respond well to antihistamines. There's something called bioperin or BH4 that will really help this, but it's an unstable supplement. So if you find a good brand, let me know if you're listening. I put elevated copper here is really important to check for anyone. Like I have severely low copper, and copper is crucial on the dopamine pathway. So like a lot of people have if you have like tics or anxiety going on or something, copper plays a big role in this. I'm going to try to hurry through, so I won't spend too much time.
Copper ticks are huge in the ASD community as well. Children with autism.
Say that again.
Ticks in children with autism are.
The pandas, yeah. So that's a really important thing to have checked in that case, because the copper, if it's a bioavailable copper, I'm going to do an interview with the only bioavailable copper on the market, the guy who founded the company. Most of it is shit, and it will store in the brain and create a copper toxicity, but an intercellular copper deficiency. So it's really important the type that is taken. And I'm going to do a video on this. I'll send it to you so you can inform your peeps. But okay. So under methylators, they do better with less vegetables. So there is all these people that say my way is the only way and vegan is this or carnivore this. Okay, F you all. It's so individualized. Your diet might be great for you, but it's going to kill the person over here. So under methylators, meat, they do really well with the meats: turkey, beef, eggs, milk, Brazil nuts. It'll help them make the methionine to make the SAMe to generate more methyl in the body to go methylate that folate. Chris, one thing I should point out too is Chris Masterjohn says that the MTHFR gene, and however it's snipped or copied, all it is a B2 deficiency, and it can be completely unsnipped and corrected by having the right amounts of B2 riboflavin in your diet. Like that's how silly simple this is.
Oh my God.
Okay, so these people do not do well with a lot of leafy greens or high folate vegetables, so they actually do have an excuse not to eat it. Now, oftentimes what happens, clinically common for over and under methylators to crave the diet that makes them worse. So we'll see. Supplements for under methylators. So these are the people that need the methylfolates, okay? The methylfolate, the methyl B12. If you do it, you have to start slow. If you take a really high dose and all of a sudden you blast open your detox pathways and glutathione production and you have some mold or funky metals in there, you're going to go into a healing crisis, Herx effect. And I've actually sent a client into that. I learned the hard way. It's very scary. So just check yourself. You also can temporarily fling yourself into over methylator status and you're going to be in the crack house with me. It's not fun. We don't want to be there. SAMe, people on under methylators do well with SAMe. B2, like I said, over and under methylators can take B2. These people do better with SSRIs and worse on benzos. They do well with antihistamines, but it's a band-aid for the high amounts of histamine in the body. Methylation, this is another can of worms. I'm going to hit it real quick in like 20 seconds. Histamine and under methylation have a direct inverse ratio. So his methylated B9 and B6 and B12 are required for histamine to be broken down in the body. So all these people with like itching and we have these hyperimmune histamine response and mast cell activation syndrome and stuff, they are under methylators. So once you address the methylation issue, the histamine problem clears, fixes itself back up. The under methylators do well with methionine, magnesium, calcium, zinc, B6, and inositol, but may react poorly to folic acid, B12, and choline. Now, this is all generic guidelines. Someone can be tweaked. All right. And I think, okay, last thing. Stop all supplements once someone feels better. We don't want to be on long-term isolated synthetics. Dr. John Christopher, the world's greatest herbalist of all time, he's passed now, but in his book, he says, do not use supplementation as medicine. If you start to really study how that stuff in the health food store is being made, what kind of chemicals they are using to extract those minerals, how they're synthesizing them in the US pharmacopoeia labs right alongside the pharmaceuticals, you are realizing that you are, even though it's sold as health, are actually probably eating something that is extremely toxic to the liver and the kidneys. So, okay, you need to use it. You need to get your levels of something up. Go to Whole Food if you can. If you can't get enough from the Whole Food, find the highest quality supplement possible and do not complain about the cost, period. And then when you are better, which should be very quickly, stop it, or at least take a really long break. No one should ever be supplementing something out of a bottle for long periods of time. Now, the idea with this is that for diet, even if you're an over methylator or an under methylator and you have those extremes of one needs a lot of vegetables and one needs a lot of meat, you can correct methylation very quickly. It's a matter of like a week. Sometimes even one good meal will line it out in the right direction. So we're all moving to the middle, which is balance. We need just enough meat and just enough greens, and your methylation will stay on point. You won't have this issue anymore.
Okay, perfect. And then, so what is your, what about like a fulvic acid? That we don't get from the foods and things like that.
Oh, that's for sure. Well, your company just launched one. I'm signing up for that.
Yes.
Boo, the whole thing that happened with Boo was an absolute nightmare. And that's unfortunate because we do need the fulvic and we need something to replace the Boo too. So,
well, yeah. And I have to show you a video from taking that, and Tim's calling, so we'll have to wrap this up. But I had my one side of my face when I talked, it went to one side. It was heavy metal toxicity. So I had my face wasn't, it was asymmetrical. It wasn't like, it wasn't good. It was from all of those heavy metals in there and the dosage and the irresponsibility and all that stuff from there.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. I'll send you the video. You're going to be like, what the F?
Send it to me. That's really interesting. So the fulvic, the new fulvic pulled those metals out and corrected the structure.
The zeolite PBX
Oh my.
Everything. It changed my life. Yeah.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I can't wait to try that.
Oh,
I'll sign
God.
up for both of them.
Yep, I can't wait either. So I just wanted to talk, get your opinion on that, because we're talking about stopping supplements, but something that the nutrients and minerals that we're supposed to be getting from the food, that we know that's not even really possible anymore, unless you're out gardening and you're tilling and you're doing your, you know what I mean? You don't really get that. So
Yeah.
okay.
You're right. I've chalked it up to like 3 things. So eating fulvic acid from peat bog, so long as it is from like, the
Right.
actual earth and not weird synthetic Walmart stuff.
Yep.
The ocean, which we got the ocean plasma. You and I are all down that rabbit hole. We got to get the minerals out from the ocean.
Yep.
And we can go to the forest and we can harvest forests, so long as they're not spraying all the nasty stuff like flame retardant and stuff in our forests. But the pine pollen, we can make pine needle tea. Any way that we can like take from nature and pull that essence into our bodies, we're going to be okay, and we're going to come out beating the game.
Yep.
So
yep.
huge fan of fulvic acid. Huh?
And the fulvic too has the sea minerals in it from the sea.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
It does, yeah. It has the sea minerals in it from the plants from the ocean. So
Good.
got all of it. It's got the zeolite gut drops in it, the minerals from the peat bog, and then it has the sea minerals in it. So it's going to change everybody's gut health. I mean, it's going to be unbelievable.
That was a very wise move of them to combine the fulvic with the sea, because that's land and earth. We're getting the best of both worlds. And
it took the humaic out, because that's the natural occurring heavy metals and stuff in there.
I love it. Because then the minerals pull the metals out.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank God. We need it.
Let's tell everybody how they can get a hold of you. So, and who is, first of all, who is somebody, who might want to go see you, people who struggle with all these things that we talked about, with a child that does have a speech delay, or ADHD, or ASD, or possible ASD, or somebody with anxiety, depression, just anything really, like, let's get you tested, let's see what's going on, can come and see you.
Yeah, I think you just summarized it. All those things, hormones. That's there are panels where you can do methylation testing with neurotransmitters, sex and stress hormones, so you can see what cortisol patterns are doing, what estrogen, progesterone, the dominance, androgens. You can see what's going on there. But I'm trained to work with bringing the body into balance from most conditions. So we do see that some are more common, but ADHD, autism, that's MMS all day right there. MMS and methylation.
Okay.
And a lot with hypothyroid, endocrinology, digestive issues. I do a lot of stuff with Crohn's and ulcerative colitis.
You do Lyme. I mean, everybody.
Oh yeah.
Literally anybody. If you have a problem, this is who I recommend. That's why I wanted to have you on. If you can use a code Jamie5858, and you'll get, just put that code in when you sign up with Caitlin, and you'll get money off of your testing. I wanted to make sure that I could do that for my followers. And is there anything else that we wanted to talk about?
I think we just nailed that coffin.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So if anybody has any, and we're going to put all the information, any links that we have, whatever, right in this, you'll see that right in the YouTube video, right beneath it. And a link to Caitlin's, her business, her website, and her Facebook page as well. Everybody knows I have my Telegram, and my TikTok, which you're probably watching this because came across my TikTok. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
This was fire.
It was so much fun. I love it. I loved going down all the rabbit holes.
Yeah. So if you suspect your child having any of these issues, or the MTHFR gene mutation, and you were told that your child has a copy, well, that doesn't really matter. You need to get testing done, and we can fix it. So, okay, here's some fucking hope.
Some fucking hope.
All right.
To pull us all out of the evil matrix.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, and hi, and thank you for listening to all of your awesome audience, and thank you guys all for helping to pull us out of this shithole. So,
All right. Well, here's the fucking health.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Bye, Caitlin.
Bye.